Hi, I'm Kai, and welcome to the basic setup guide for KaiCore General. This is the basic setup guide, so we won't be covering any of the extra programming stuff you can do here. For demonstration purposes, we'll be using this example mod I made here, that has absolutely nothing in it, and this will be available on the mod page at the end. And we'll be testing our changes in this settings tab in the main menu, because it's easier to access than the in-game menu. The guide is broken down into two sections. First of all, we're going to cover how to add a name, a version number, the author, a basic description, some tags, and a header image to your mod. And then I'm going to explain how to set up the automatic mod status update checker. So right off the bat, before doing anything else, you'll see that the mod is already being picked up by the modding menu. It's listed here in the auto detected category. However, as you'd expect, the description is completely empty. So let's fix that. But to do that, we're going to need some template files. So go over to the KaiCore General mod page, go into Files, and download the basic templates file. And then you can open it up, go into KaiCore General Templates Basic, and we'll be using the Manifests Basic folder. There are some extra settings in this one here, but we won't be using them for now. So let's get set up. Let's go into the basic folder here, open up our mod, and drag and drop these files in there. Now, like I said, we'll be starting off with the mod manifest file. The mod update file manages the auto checker, and we'll set that up later. You can edit these files in any text editor, but I'll be using Notepad++ just because the dark background is a little bit easier on the eyes, but you can just open them and edit them like this. Now let's drag and drop them in. And let's get started. First is your mod's common name. This is just the name in the manifest file. This should be the same as the mod's folder name, and if it isn't, you won't be able to use this method. You can add it in code, but I'll cover that in the next guide. But seeing as most mods should have the same name for both the manifest file and the mod folder, let's just grab that. Copy that, and paste it in. Next, we'll need the mod's full name. So this is the name as it appears on either Nexus or in the modding menu. You don't want to include any extra tags like new species, version names, anything like that. So, we'll just call it ExampleMod. Next, the full version. This is just the version code. It doesn't get checked at any point, it just shows up in the modding menu, like so. So anything you put in there, that's just what it is. We'll call it version 1.0 for now. We're going to skip tags for now because they can be a little bit more complicated, so I'll cover them in our own section. Author, that's pretty simple, but it's just a string, so it doesn't have to be one person. It can be this, or it can be, say, that, and I don't know, Cobra, team, X team, whatever you want it to be. For me, though, that's just my Discord name. Next, description. That's just the bit of text that'll show up at the bottom, as you can see here, for example. So for me, this will be, this is an example mod that adds a new species, if I could type, species, and a feeder. You can add new lines here, but you can't just press enter, that will break the file. Instead, you gotta type /n. So type /n for 2 new lines, and say, this does nothing. Next up, the numeric version. So this is, again, just a number, but I went on a bit of a long-winded explanation there, but basically, this is just a number. Your full version, that is a string of text with a whole bunch of numbers and periods, which is hard to compare in code. However, a simple number, so like 20.0, is quite easy to compare in code. So this is mainly used for if other mods might rely on your mod in the future, and so they need to check the version as just a plain number. For most mods, I recommend leaving it at 1.0, but if you want to, you can increase it by 1 every time we increase the full version string. So for example, 1.0 at 1.0, and then if we change that to 1.1, we set this to 2, 1.2, set this to 3, 1.1.0, set this to 4, etc. Go up by 1 each time. But I think for most mods, you can just leave it at 1.0. And then just a boolean, do you want to display the mod or not? This affects the modding menu. So if you say false, the mod will not show up in the modding menu. If you say true, it will. And now for the tags. So as you can see here, tags are organized alphabetically within their own category, those categories being APIs in yellow, regular mods in cyan, and automatically detected mods in black, and then shortened depending on what tag it is. Now tags can be anything you like, but only specific tags will be added as categories within the modding menu. To see what tags are available, again, go to the KaiCore General page, go into Articles this time, and have a look at the usable modding menu categories. And what this shows is basically what tags show up in the game on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, what you can enter as a tag within this file for that to show up. So for example, for our mod, this will be a species mod, so we can enter either species or new species. I'm going to enter new species. Separated by a comma, you can add a space if you like, it doesn't matter. And we're adding a feeder, so we're going to also add buildings and gameplay. And the way the modding menu works is the first tag leading left to right that it finds that matches a category will be that mod's category. So for example, right now, it'll be listed as new species. If we move buildings in front, it'll be listed as buildings. You can also add other tags not within a category. For example, I can say, it's my mod, or I could say, it's an example mod. But because these aren't real tags, it'll still find the first real tag, which is still buildings, and that's how it will be listed. So let's save that as it is, and reload the game. There we go, we've loaded back up, and we go into settings, modding, and there's our mod. See, it's listed as a buildings mod because that's the first real tag it found, but it has all the tags we added in here. It has a description with the 2 extra lines we added, and the version number we selected. But it's still missing a header image. As you can see, this mod has a header image, and ours, I'm careful not to show off mods that aren't ready yet, ours does not. Now adding a header image is a little bit more complicated than adding this information or even setting up the auto checker, but it is part of this setup, so we'll do that now. Now first open up your mod and the template zip file, go into presets basic, and you'll want to take these files out of there. It doesn't really matter where you add them, but we'll add them within the standard icons path, which is UI, icons, and we'll call the file mod menu underscore the name of this mod, which is ExampleMod. This doesn't really matter, that's just how I want to organize it. And we'll take the Photoshop file out of there because we don't want to compile that. Now the path doesn't matter so much, what matters is that the name of your image is mod menu underscore the name of your mod in the manifest file underscore header image. So for example, for free build, if we just go into that real quick, that would be Kai free build here, and likewise we want to have the same thing here. But because this is ExampleMod, we don't want that. We want the original, which is mod menu underscore ExampleMod. So let's just draw something here. This is transparent. Again, the Photoshop file includes transparency and all that. You can use that if you wish. It has some divisions for the right-hand side and the left-hand side to make the selection easier. But we are just going to edit this as is. Ow, that is bright, holy shit. And I'll give it a painfully green background with a painfully blue smiley face. Massive nose. And then, there we go, it's a thing of beauty. Save that, and let's compile this. I imagine most people know how to add a new icon to the game, but I'll show that off anyway. Open up Cobra tools, change the game to Jurassic World Evolution 2, File, New, or Control-N, copy in this path here, select folder, and that'll add the file in, and then save it here, and we'll call it mod menu example mod, whoops, to match the folder name. There we go. Now to load that into the game, we need to add it to an init file and to the main file. So for that, let's add a new init folder. Within this, we want to add a new asset package file. And again, this doesn't matter so much. The only thing that matters is the name of the image itself. So we'll call it mod menu example mod.asset package. But again, this thing doesn't matter too much. We'll just drag that in there. And it's time to fill it out. I've stolen this bit of code from an existing asset package, and I'll include it in the description. So to include it properly, we'll go back in there, copy that path over, including OVL data, an extra backslash, and here's our file name, and save that, and that is all we need to do here. And now, to add the icon to the main file, we want to add a new user interface icon data file here. And we'll call it, again, this is the part that matters, mod menu underscore, the name of the mod in the manifest file, so that's ExampleMod, underscore header image dot user interface icon data. And let's fill that out too. And again, I stole this from an existing file, and I will include this in the description. The OVL name is the name of the OVL, surprisingly enough, and for us, that is this here. Mod menu, example mod. And text name, again, this is the part that matters. It should match this, but it can be capitalized, so that's what I'll do. Mod menu underscore example mod underscore header image. Save that. And now we compile these two files here, the init and the main, and that should show up. And there we go, we have the new init file and a recompiled main file. So let's restart the game and have a look. Now if we go into settings, modding, example mod, there is our header image. And it's as awful as we expected it to be. Now I imagine that is the hardest part of the setup done, but let's have a look at setting up the automated mod status checker as well. So we can close this and this now, and the manifest file, and probably the mod manifest file too, but I'll just keep that open for now. Now this one is a little bit more complicated than a mod manifest file, but it's not too bad, so bear with me and we'll get through it. And for demonstration purposes, I'm going to set it up to work with KaiCore General, just so we have some way of showing that it's working in-game. I should have mentioned, I'm doing this because ExampleMod doesn't have its own mod page, so if we want to test updates or mod page tags, we can either make a new page or use an existing page, and using an existing page is just easier. So first of all, we need the file name, that is just the name of the download file, as it appears here. So for KaiCore General, that's KaiCore_General. And if we were to open up another mod, just have a look at what there is. There we go. For KaiCore Toolbox, it would literally be KaiCore Toolbox. But we're using KaiCore General, so let's change this real quick. KaiCore_General. Now the mod ID is just the ID of the mod in the URL, so that's 513 here, 513. Let's copy that. Don't know why I copied it, I could just type it, but whatever. Save. Now these two, game version and mod version, these only matter if you want the automatic version checker, but I do think you should have that enabled, so let's explain that real quick. As you may have noticed, for a while now, my mods have been using this format in their version name. What this means is game version 1.4.6 and mod version 1.2. And you can see how that's broken up. It's broken up as G 1.4.6 dash V, that's for version, mod version 1.2. And so long as your downloads follow the same format, you can automatically have the mod check them for you. Now the game version here doesn't super matter. This doesn't get checked against anything except for the file itself. So you can set this to anything you like. It's just for the user to see what version it's on. It also means that you can update a mod to a new version without changing the mod version. But again, this never gets checked to this. It only ever gets checked to the file you have downloaded. So, for demonstration purposes, I'm going to make mine older than this. I'll use the same game version, 1.4.6, and I'll use an older mod version, 1.1. And I'm setting my own file to an older version than the one online, so that I can demonstrate how the game picks this up, and notifies me that an update is available. And we'll save this. Gate name and gate version, this is just if you want to add an alpha, for example, alpha 5 or something. Don't do this for now, I'll explain how this works later. And with that, you're all set up. That's everything you had to do. You still have a bunch of options here that you can change, so let's just go through them real quick. First of all, check for updates and check for status. That just means that the mod will go online onto your page and check the version of the mod and check the status of your mod in the description. So I would recommend leaving them enabled. Next, notify of updates and notify of status. This refers to the pop-ups you get when you open the game. Again, I would recommend leaving them enabled, just not using them to begin with. This way it won't get in the way of players, but you have the option to use it if you wish to. And finally, display updates and display status. This refers to the modding menu, whether it's displayed here. Again, I would recommend leaving this on, so true. And that about does it. So you'll want to update this file whenever you update your mod, just to display the recent mod version, and you can change the game version if you want that to be clear to users as well. So with this all set up, let's close the mod, and have a little look, see if it worked. And there we go! It shows up right here. Now this pop-up will list all mods that have been updated, so they won't appear individually, they'll just appear all in one pop-up together. Now, if you remember, we had display update enabled as well. If we go into settings, you'll see update available. You'll see it says the currently installed version is 1.1 for game version 1.4.6. That's as it appeared here, 1.1 for 1.4.6. And the one online is 1.2 for 1.4.6, as it appeared here, 1.2 for 1.4.6. And just to clarify, the mod doesn't check for the version here, it checks for it on the latest file you have. So the furthest up file you have, that is the version it'll check for in the modding menu. And at this point, you're all set up. You can leave it as it is. Whenever you update your mod, just be sure to update this file here with your mod, and update the mod version on the mod page just down here. Now with the update checker covered, we can finally move on to the mod status checker. As you will have seen in the overview, modders can add a number of tags to their mod page that will be automatically scanned by this mod and appear in the modding menu or as pop-ups when you launch the game. To see a full list of all the status tags you can use, head over to the mod page again, go into articles, and open up usable mod status tags. And these here are the tags you can use. So let me give you a couple of examples. But to do this, I'm going to open another tab so we can have a look at this list while we work and stuff. And again, we'll be working with this mod page just to keep things simple. Status tags can be added anywhere in the description, so at the top, at the bottom, somewhere in the middle. The only important thing is not to break the flow of the status. So let me give you an example with the most basic status tag, that being mod status. I'm going to add this at the bottom of the page because that's what got selected. And we'll set the status to, say, unverified. And if we save that and reload the game, you'll see that now, if we go into settings, the mod says it is unverified for the latest version of the game. You'll see it says it for this mod as well, because, again, they're using the same mod page. But that tag is pretty low risk, which means the game still works, it just hasn't been tested fully. What if, say, you open a game, place down a building that your mod adds, and the game crashes? Well, at that point, you want to warn users more directly. For that, use the broken status. We add that in, save, and reload. You'll see we now get a pop-up on launch. And again, we get a second one later, because both mods use the same mod page. And if we go into settings, you'll see it says the mod is unstable on this version of the game. You can also set things to working, which doesn't do anything in-game, but it means you can keep this tag without anything popping up in-game for the player. So that leaves us with soft discontinued and hard discontinued. These are both very similar. They mean that your mod is no longer being updated, the difference being soft discontinued means the mod still works, whereas hard discontinued means the mod doesn't work anymore. And so, soft discontinued shows a message in the menu, whereas hard discontinued shows a pop-up when the player launches the game. The next tag actually ties into these two, so let's set it to hard discontinued, just for demonstration purposes. Now if we save, and reopen the game, as you'd expect, you get a pop-up when you launch the game, saying, "This mod has been marked as hard discontinued, it is unstable and no longer being updated." And, as you'd expect, you get a message about it in the modding menu too. And of course you get it for both mods, because both mods are using the same mod page. But as I said, both of these discontinue tags tie into this second tag here, Superseding mod. What I mean by that is, this tag only works if mod status is set to discontinued, either soft or hard. The purpose of this tag is to let a player know that a new mod has taken the place of this one. One example of this is the damage tool. So, the damage tool has been discontinued because it has been superseded by KaiCore Toolbox. It is part of this mod now, and this mod is no longer being updated. So let's pretend for a minute that KaiCore General is now being included as part of KaiCore menu. What you do in that case is say, this mod has been discontinued, either hard or soft, depending on if it works or not. And it has been superseded by KaiCore menu. And one last thing we need is the mod ID of the superseding mod. So we're going to go open up KaiCore menu. The ID is 448. And let's save that and see what happens. And as you can see, this time we get a slightly different message saying, the old mod is obsolete, but there is a new mod you can download. If you open the mod page, it'll take you to that new mods page. This is why you include the ID. Likewise, if you now check the warning message, it says there is a new mod you can download to replace the old one. But again, this only works if you had mod status set to discontinued, either hard or soft. So, with all that covered, let's move on to the next tag, which is latest update status. The way this works is it notifies the user if the latest update to the mod is critical or normal. What that means is, if you either don't include this tag, or you set it's normal, then any updates to the mod will be displayed alongside all other mod updates. However, if you set it to critical, the mod will get its own update pop-up, saying how it's an important update and you should download it. So, let's show an example of this. I'm going to paste that in there, replace update status with critical, save the mod, and let's launch the game again. And there we have it. We have a pop-up saying the update is critical, and it may be necessary to a stable experience. Next up, we have the latest verified game version tag. With this set, the game will automatically check the version of the game you're running, and compare it to the version you've entered here. If the version of the game you're running is higher than this, you'll get a little warning in the settings menu. Please note that this version is related only to the game version you're currently running, as in the literal number here. It is not related to the file version you've set here, or here. Let's copy it over. One more thing to be aware of is that this version here is checked exactly number by number to your game version. So for example, if I were to enter 1.6.4, that is less than this version. So I still get the warning even though I've entered 1.6.4, because 1.6.4 is less than 1.6.4.46697. But to show an example of this, let's do that. Let's save. And again, relaunch the game. Now when we go into the game, we get no pop-ups, but we go into settings, we get a warning saying, mod unverified for this version of the game. So this is very good for mods that have the tendency to break between game updates. This lets you, as a modder, go into the game, test it yourself, and then you can update the version listed on your mod page. Or, if the mod is broken, you can change the status to broken. Finally, we have the min stable mod version tag. What this does is checks the version you've entered here and compares it to the version you have installed here. Again, this is mod version, not game version, so it only checks this. If your locally installed version of the mod is older than the minimum stable version, you get a warning about it. This is mainly used for if a game update has broken your mod, and then you fixed it later on. What you do then is you say that the fixed version of your mod is the minimum stable version of your mod, and any older versions before the fix are broken. Let's give you an example. Let's set this to 1.2 because that is more recent than our 1.1. That is a higher version here. Let's save that and reload the game. So this time we get no pop-ups, but if we go into the settings menu, we get a warning about an unstable mod version. And the reason we get no pop-ups is because people could be playing on an older version of the game to use an older version of the mod. And of course, you can mix and match the system as much as you like. You can use any and all tags together. With some exceptions, obviously, like Superseding mod can only be used if mod status is set to discontinued. But there are a couple of rules about using this, so let's just get into those right now. First of all, you can apply styles to these, but you cannot interrupt them with styles. For example, you can't say min stable mod version 1. We go in here. Italics in the middle, like so. So 1.italics.2. You can't do this, the mod will not be able to read this because the base code is interrupted. You can, however, add styling around the important bits. So for example, you can't interrupt the version number, but you can add something around the version number. So you can say, turn that green, and this should still work fine, provided the version number itself has not been interrupted. Also, when working on a superseding mod, you cannot interrupt anything within the quotes. So for example, you can say mod name here, but you cannot add styles within the quotes themselves. Also, you cannot add any extra quotes here. So for example, this would break it, and you cannot add any extra square brackets anywhere between these two. So for example, something like this would break this. The left-hand side is a little bit more lenient though. You can add things between breaks, so long as the main text still stays. You can add extra code around the main text, so for example I can make this italics, but I cannot interrupt the word itself, so adding, say, underscore here, that interrupts the word mod and would break everything. Likewise, on something like mod status, the status itself has to be uninterrupted. So you can add italics around it, you can add fonts around it, but you cannot interrupt the word itself. So you can't say add italics around one letter. And the best way to check this is to go into this here tab, and then you can see if the words are interrupted. But I think to be safe, the easiest thing to do is to add styles around the entire thing, around the entire tag, and not within. That way you know you're not breaking any rules and it should still work. But if you want to get really fancy with it, I will include a full list of rules on this page here, on KaiCore General, Articles, Usable Mod Tags. I haven't filled it out yet, but I will include a full list of rules at the bottom if you really want to play around with this. And of course, the best way to test it is to go into the game and see if it still works. If it doesn't, it's broken. Now I did say I was going to get into this later, so let's do that now. If we open up Manifest Full, that includes a couple of extra options we don't normally get. The first of these is skip packages for mod manifest. What this does is you can skip certain packages from showing up within the mod menu. This is normally used if your mod includes multiple packages but only wants one entry in the mod menu. So for example, if I entered ACSE here, because that is the name, let me just open up. There we go. That is the name of this folder. If I were to enter that, ACSE would no longer show up on this list. If I wanted to remove both ACSE and freebuild, I would do ACC, comma, Kai freebuild, because that is the name of this folder. Or rather, that is the name within the manifest file. One last thing you might want to do is include is core mod. Now this isn't for most mods are not core mods, and you can include it by just including the core mod tag. So if we include core mod here, it'll be listed as a core mod within the menu. However, If for whatever reason you don't want to include a tag, but you still want it to show up under this section, that's how you would do that. You would say is core mode equals true, and it would now show up under the core mode tag. But again, a core mod is basically an API for other mods. If you don't know what an API is, your mod is not one. So unless you're making an API, you don't want to do this, and in fact, you shouldn't because it will confuse people. But I included it because you can't always predict how script mods will be written in the future. And I believe that about covers the basic setup. So again, this is something most modders should be able to do, and should be able to do it quite easily. If you have any questions, please do let me know. And next time, we'll be covering the advanced guide for programmers, where we learn how to add options and all that kind of stuff to the modding menu.